Welcome to the Truth About Social Ads podcast, where we talk about everything related to social media ads and give you the truth about what's happening in the world of ads.
Hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome to another episode of the Truth About Social Ads, where we sit down with brands, leaders, e-commerce businesses, and chat about what they're doing in the marketing space and just chat about cool businesses. Super excited for today's episode. Today I have Addison LaBonte. She is the founder of Sweet Addison's, a fast-growing, better-for-you bakery known for its gluten-free and dairy-free cookies and brownies, and they're shipped nationwide. She's also the voice behind Organically Addison on Instagram, where she shares recipes and the real journey of being a modern food brand, from scaling from her apartment kitchen to landing retail and media features. Addison is redefining what it means to build a premium, health-conscious CPG brand today. Addison, thanks for being on. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jason. I'm excited to be here.
Gosh, I think it's going to be super cool talking about you, the brand, and kind of what you guys are doing. I know you're doing a lot of cool stuff. I actually went on and bought about a dozen cookies from you guys. And to be honest, my favorite was the oatmeal chocolate chip. That was like, dude, so good. So
Thank you.
And for being healthy, clean ingredients and all that, it was better than I thought it was going to be. So kudos there. I mean, yeah, you guys are doing awesome. So why don't you tell the audience who you are? Obviously, I think let's start with you first and kind of how the brand came about, like what this evolved from, your background, and then we'll kind of get into some of the brand specifics and stuff like that. So
You got it. So I was a college soccer player. I went to the University of Maine. And after I graduated, I decided that I wanted to run a marathon. And as I was doing these long runs, my legs would go completely numb.
wow.
And it was a very weird sensation. I'd never really had another big injury in my life. And I just graduated from being a D1 athlete. So
Hmm.
I was very confused.
Yeah, you're like
And
in good shape and everything's good. Yeah,
right,
yeah,
I just wanted to
yeah.
be able to run.
Right.
And so I eventually went to go see a couple different doctors, and they diagnosed me with something called compartment syndrome, which is a blood circulation issue that was caused by excessive inflammation in my body.
Wow.
So my doctor basically sat me down and said, you can either quit running forever or you can get surgery on both of your legs.
Wow.
And I said, neither. I'm definitely going to keep running, and there's no way I'm
Yeah.
getting surgery on both my legs. Like at the time I was 22, I felt like I was in the best shape of my life and just wanted to run this marathon. So at the time I was training with my aunt, who's also a marathon runner,
Hmm.
and she became gluten-free while marathon training just to help her feel better overall. And so one day she recommended that I give it a shot and become gluten-free. And we had no idea if it would help the numbness in my legs, but I was willing to give it a shot because I was so desperate just to feel normal. So I quit gluten cold turkey and I started reading every ingredient label. And
Good. Yeah.
within, within a few, 3 or 4 days, I could run again.
That is
And
crazy.
it was so fast that I was able to resume normal life. And at first, I was just excited that I could run again. And then I noticed that all these other symptoms that I had been experiencing my entire life had gone
Hmm.
away. I used to get really, really bad headaches every single week, like 1 to 2
Wow.
bad headaches were to the point where I'm taking medicine.
Yeah, right.
And
Like migraines.
yeah, like
Yeah.
migraines.
Yeah.
And those completely went away. I maybe get one headache a year now.
Wow.
And so I just noticed all these symptoms clear up, and I started doing a bunch of research about compartment syndrome and celiac disease and being gluten
Hmm.
free, and
Hmm.
there was nothing out there.
Wow.
So I thought people need to know about this. And by the way, after my doctor said you shouldn't run again, 8 months later, I ran my first marathon
That's awesome.
and I was able to feel every step.
Yeah, yeah. So wait a second though. So going back real quick though. So the surgery that they were gonna do on like, what was the actual surgery? Like, 'cause I guess I don't understand because if it's lack of blood flow, that would mean, like, you need more nitric oxide maybe or, like, to open up your flow I don't know, you know? So, like, what were they gonna do? And I guess tell me about like, if you woulda done it, you probably would have never been the same again, right? So tell me about the surgery and, like, what that exactly detailed. Um, yeah.
So, in someone with compartment syndrome, the muscle fibers that surround your muscles in a healthy person,
Mhm.
those muscle fibers, when they're being worked, they expand. Your muscles literally get swollen, but those muscle fibers expand to allow for the extra blood flow to get to your muscles that are working so hard.
Got it.
For whatever reason, because of the inflammation in my body, those muscle fibers when I was running never expanded. So the muscles in my legs are working so hard and they're getting swollen and they're bumping up against those muscle fibers, and there's no blood flow that can get to those muscles. So the blood
Okay.
flow gets cut off, the feeling gets cut off. And basically, what my doctor said was to combat compartment syndrome, what they would do is they would go into those muscle fibers and make incisions everywhere to allow them to expand.
Oh,
So,
shoot. Okay.
yeah, and I've known 2 people who have gotten this surgery, and basically what my doctor said was it's a 50-50 guess. Like, we're not sure if it's going to fix the issue, and each leg would have a 6-month recovery time, so I'd be out of all
Wow.
exercise for a year. And I said, or this is what he said, "Or you can get them done at the same time and you'd be in a wheelchair for 6
Yeah, I
months."
was gonna say, so did they recommend so they recommended, like, get surgery on one leg, 6-month recovery, the next leg, 6-month recovery. Dude, that is crazy. Wow. Okay.
Crazy. And
Yeah.
I will say never once did this doctor ask about my diet and lifestyle.
Right. Hell, like, what are you eating? Like, let's prescribe you a diet first before we, go in and do all this to your legs. Okay. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense because most doctors don't know anything about nutrition, unfortunately, you know?
Right.
So,
And they
yeah,
don't get paid when you're healthy. So,
this is
uh
true. Yes.
so
I'm
so that's what happens with someone with compartment syndrome. But so I started doing all this research and I thought, how is there nothing out there about the link between being gluten-free and compartment syndrome? So I started an Instagram account called Organically Addison, and I just started posting about how I started my gluten-free journey and what I was baking for dessert at home and what it was like to go to dinner if you're gluten-free. And
right.
granted, this was 2016. Like, most people didn't know what gluten-free was.
Yeah, now it's
And
a little different, but yeah, correct. Yeah, okay.
right. So I started posting on this Instagram account and really built up a following then. At the time, I was working in finance, and this is kind of like my creative outlet.
Cool.
And I had so much fun with it, got to connect with people from all over the world, and really felt like I was making a difference in helping people.
Mhm.
And so it became my goal to build up that account so that eventually that would replace my full-time income.
It's
And
awesome.
then I had this I did this holiday baking series in the end of 2022 around Christmas time, all about different Christmas cookies that were gluten-free.
Huh.
And it went viral, and I started getting DMs from people all over the country saying, "Hey, where can I buy these cookies?" Or, "Hey, can you ship these to me?" Or, "I'll pay you for these. Where can I pick them up?" And I thought,
Wow.
you can't ship cookies in the mail. Like, that's the weirdest thing
Right.
ever."
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I knew that there was demand there, and I had this big audience that was asking for something.
Mhm.
And living in Texas, but having my family live in Maine, I was traveling all the time, and every time I traveled, I'd bake cookies to bring with me because I couldn't find a
You couldn't
clean.
get a healthy option. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
put 2 and 2 together, I had the demand, I had the knowledge of how to bake gluten-free, and I saw a really big gap in the market. So I launched my consumer packaged goods product, Sweet Addisons, in 2024.
Cool. That's awesome. And before we get into Sweet Addisons, I had a couple more questions for you. So, with this disease, is it is it a legit disease because people are actually just born with it, or is it is it a food-based disease where you just if you ate right and ate clean like you did, would it go away?
So I'm gonna say I think a lot of things can go away with the right diet
Yeah,
and lifestyle.
totally. Yeah.
I don't know if I was born with it, honestly, I have no idea. I will say that I've never experienced numbness in my legs while running, but according to my doctor, because marathon training is so repetitive, it can show up then.
Mm,
So, up until this marathon training, I had never run more than, like, 5 miles at one time without stopping, right? When I
right.
was playing soccer, it's like, "Stop, start, stop,"
Yeah,
and you're
you're
moving side
sprinting
to
and then
side, and
yep, yep.
it's not repetitive.
Got it.
But with distance running, you're pounding the pavement for
Yeah,
hours on end.
yeah.
That's why my legs freaked out. So, I don't know if
Crazy.
I was born with it. I had just never experienced anything like that until I was 22 years old.
Yeah, that's crazy. And how was how was your diet then? I mean, were you eating a lot of gluten? Were you just kind of like the typical college student going out, drinking and then eating whatever because you were young? Like how was your diet at that time?
I was eating the standard American diet, which is filled with fast food and processed foods and excess sugar, like an insane amount of sugar. I've always had a sweet tooth.
Me too. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I love your cookies.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I was eating, I mean, McDonald's at least once a week. I was eating ice
Got it.
cream
Yeah.
almost every night.
Yeah.
But I didn't really think twice about it because I was a D1 athlete and I thought I was performing at the highest level I could and I stayed fit. And again, when you're a D1 athlete, meals have to be convenient, right? I don't have
Absolutely.
all day to cook and to do
Yeah.
these elaborate meals.
Yeah.
So fast food was often the easiest, and that was my go-to. So I now think back and wonder how much better of a soccer player I could have been if I was
Right.
eating correctly.
Yeah, eating all the right stuff. Yeah, exactly. Because I think so my wife, she makes sourdough, homemade sourdough, and it's taken her about a year to really perfect it. Now she'll like bust out 2 loaves, no problem and stuff. And so there is a little bit of gluten in sourdough, but it seems like the gluten in sourdough, since it's fermented, it doesn't have a big effect. Like, can you eat sourdough and be okay? Like, I would say full clean ingredients, homemade sourdough. Could you eat that and be okay, or someone with, like, maybe a gluten intolerance?
So I've actually never tried regular sourdough. I've only ever tried gluten-free sourdough.
Ah, okay.
I'm a little bit hesitant to eat anything with gluten.
Yeah,
Even though, like, I went over to Europe a couple years ago, I still didn't try it because at this point, I know not only would the issues with my running come back up, but I would be extremely sick just because it's been so many years since I've
try
accidentally even
yeah,
eaten it. I
yeah,
do know that a lot of people who are gluten-free can tolerate sourdough because it is fermented and there's such a small level of gluten. For
yeah,
me, it's just not worth it. I've never
totally.
loved bread, which is crazy because 'cause I'm an American saying that, but, like, carbs have
Yeah,
never been my thing.
well, that's good.
Um, and I think it's funny looking back on what I ate as a child, like, every time I ate pasta, I would get a really bad headache, and I think it's because it's straight gluten.
Yeah, yeah,
I also never ate I very, very rarely ate sandwiches growing up. I remember, like, packing my lunch as a kid, it would just be, like, some sort of meat and fruit and chocolate and, not necessarily the healthiest thing, but I
right.
wasn't that kid who brought a sandwich to school every day, and I literally still equate pasta with feeling sick.
Wow.
But at the time, I just thought, "Oh, maybe I didn't eat enough protein, or maybe I didn't drink enough water, or maybe I didn't sleep enough, and that's why I have a headache." So, I was kind of always able to justify why I was feeling sick and didn't put 2 and 2 together until I became gluten-free.
Yeah, crazy. Okay, so you went gluten-free, at the time, not a ton of information. So was it hard for you to find gluten-free options, or was it pretty easy for you once you went there? Maybe because you said your aunt was also gluten-free, right?
Yes, so she helped me a lot in the beginning, but I did a little bit of research about what is and isn't gluten-free,
Yeah,
but the biggest wake-up call for me was that I will never forget that first time I went to the grocery store and did my first grocery haul, gluten-free,
Yeah.
and I was flipping around all of the packages looking at the ingredients, and I was just shocked at what was in our food and what I had been feeding myself.
Yep.
So, it's easy when something says gluten-free on the front, but all the other things I was looking at, like, there were even some meats that I was eating that was marinated in soy sauce, and soy sauce is not gluten-free. So, it was a really big adjustment at first. Then I would say, like, once I got into it, it was relatively easy for me because I've always been, like, a meat and potatoes kind of eater.
Yeah.
So, that was fine, and then it really just was, how do I bake gluten-free? That was my biggest
That
concern.
was the
Like,
biggest thing. Yeah.
you can survive off of, like, meat, potatoes, and fruit during the day, but, like,
Yeah.
I need to have something chocolate.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what can I eat that's safe to eat that when it comes to dessert?
That's cool. Yeah, and it is crazy because even aren't some gluten-free things also bad for you, like with all the gums and all the crap in it as well, right? So you really have to watch what you're eating. So, and I know again, back then it was a little hard. Now it's a lot easier, I think, to get gluten-free options that actually taste pretty decent. I mean, obviously you've perfected that in your cookies as well. Okay, so started Sweet Addison's. And yeah, tell us about like you started it. How did it go? Were you like these things are selling like crazy, kind of like what you said before, or were there some hardships? Like, kind of give us the rundown of when you started and kind of how it was, and the struggles or the successes that you had when you started Sweet Addison's.
I officially launched at the very end of January in 2024, and when I tell you I have no idea what I was doing, I genuinely had no idea.
Yeah.
Knew that I would figure it out, and I
Right.
knew that through Google and YouTube and LinkedIn, I could figure out most things.
Yeah.
So I, again, genuinely had no idea what I was doing. Because I had built up this online audience, I had some pretty good traction from day one. I had started talking about the brand a couple months before it actually launched. And so day one, I had people excited and ready to buy,
Awesome.
and just figuring out all the different logistics about packaging and shipping
Yeah.
and branding and building a website. And there were a lot of things that I was doing for the first time, which for me was outside my comfort zone. And
Yeah.
I realized pretty early on when you start a business that you just have to throw your comfort zone out the window.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yep.
just, I think honestly, for a year and a half, I think I was so far outside my comfort zone every day, my body was in, like, permanent fight or flight mode. Now it's settled down, my nervous system is a little bit more back to normal now,
Yeah.
but just figuring things out, I would say probably the hardest was just those first, like, 9 or 10 months where it was just me, and I was baking all day by myself and shipping out
Yeah.
orders by myself, and it was so much manual labor. Again, I come from a finance background where I'm sitting at the computer all day, and
Yeah. Yeah.
physically, that's extremely easy. Mentally, not easy, but
Right.
physically very easy.
Yeah.
Go then into a manual labor job, I was just so exhausted all the time, and again, didn't know what I was doing, felt very alone all the time.
Yeah.
Now I have a team that's amazing, and they do most of the baking and packaging and order fulfillment for me, so it's been rewarding in that sense, but
Yeah.
hands
That's
down,
awesome.
this has been the most challenging experience of my life.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's funny because I also became an entrepreneur to like get time back, so they say, right? And all these things, but then I find myself like, still working a lot of hours, but it's my business, right? Same with you, you work long hours, you do hard things because that I don't know, maybe I'm just driven to do that, I guess. And you're probably the same. So when you first started, you were literally just doing this out of your own kitchen, right?
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. And how long did that happen for, just like your own kitchen in your house, like working your butt off?
That was about 7 months, and then in August of 2024, I moved into a commercial kitchen, and that was an adjustment for sure. Commercial
Yeah.
ovens are so much different than home ovens.
Yep.
I mean, I had to tweak the baking time, the baking temperature, just everything about my process, and it was just another step outside my comfort zone.
Yeah.
I mean, it was taking over my life here at home, but it was also very convenient because I could just be at home doing this, and I could
Right.
bake until 1 a.m. if I needed to, and then just
Yeah.
literally go to bed, whereas in
Yeah.
a kitchen is just a lot different.
Yeah.
Plus then I'm scaling up the recipes because now I have multiple ovens with multiple racks and a huge refrigerator and freezer. So
Crazy.
everything was just very different, but I knew that there was no way that I could scale this business into a larger business if I didn't go the commercial kitchen
Yeah.
route.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. So talk a little bit about like the recipe itself. Like I think you started off with just like a basic chocolate chip cookie, right?
Yes.
So like and again, like talking very high level, going through all the steps. Okay, we did this and this, the packaging, the brand, and like figuring out all this stuff. But like what about the recipe itself? Like did you just say, okay, I know what good ingredients are, that's what I want in my cookie? Did it fail? Did it not taste good? Like go through a little bit of the actual, because that's what I'm interested in too, is like how the recipe came about, how, because some gluten-free cookies that are they just taste like cardboard, I've tasted them before and I'm like, man. And then when I tasted yours, I'm like, oh wow, these are actually really, even my wife was like, oh dang, these are really good. So
Thank you.
chat about like the recipe itself and how that came like a thing and how you perfected it. And maybe it's kind of changing too, maybe there's things that you're also throwing in there. So talk about that a little bit.
Sure. So I knew that before I launched this business, I needed to have a really great recipe to work off of. So I at that point had been baking gluten-free for 7 years, so I had a pretty good grasp on what did and didn't work, but I knew that for my brand Sweet Addisons, I wanted it to be the cleanest ingredient cookie possible.
Awesome.
So I essentially went through all the typical ingredients of a cookie and thought, an average cookie out there is using all-purpose flour. Well, of course, we can't use that because it's not gluten-free. Do
Correct.
I
Yeah.
use gluten-free rice flour or do I use a healthier flour? So I decided pretty early on that I wanted to use almond flour. And the reason for that is it's made from one ingredient,
Hmm.
almonds.
Oh, yep.
It's
Yep.
naturally higher in protein than all of their flours. It's relatively easy to source. It's at every grocery store now. At
Sure.
the time, I was buying it from Costco. And I really personally love the flavor. It just adds a teeny bit of nutty flavor.
Hmm.
And so I basically went ingredient by ingredient and what do I want to use? The other biggest decision was what sweetener do we want to use? So, like you were saying earlier, a lot of gluten free products out there are loaded with sugar to make them taste
Yeah.
normal.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to do that. I personally don't eat any refined sugar. So, I don't eat white sugar or brown sugar.
Hmm.
And so I knew that I also wanted to have some sort of all natural sweetener. So I went back and forth between, and we eventually settled on organic coconut sugar. But I also tried out date sugar. I tried maple syrup. I tried honey. I tried maple sugar, which is like brown sugar, but it's made from maple instead
Hmm.
of cane sugar. And so I tried all those and I ended up liking the flavor and texture of organic coconut sugar the best. So that's still what we use today. And then I'd say probably the biggest hurdle was finding a vendor for coconut sugar sweetened chocolate chips. That took me
Yeah.
couple months to find a good I mean, I was reaching out what seemed like every day to different vendors, and the price was astronomical. I will say when we started in 2024, the price of these chocolate chips was about half of what I'm paying right now. It's
Wow.
wild how
That's
much
crazy.
the price has gone up. I've never raised prices for my customers. I've taken the
Yeah.
hit myself. But really high quality chocolate. So that was the hardest thing to find. But I went through and I kept a very detailed little diary, I guess, of all the
Sure.
different recipe iterations that I'd tried, and it was 26 variations before I landed on the one that we still use
Wow.
today.
That's crazy. That's super cool. Yeah, my wife, we try to eat as as clean and as healthy as we can. We're kind of on the microplastics kick right now.
Yeah.
We're trying to avoid like all that stuff. But um, yeah, that's so cool. I mean, I think we use a lot of almond flour as well. Like I actually may not seem like it, covered in tattoos and all this stuff, but I actually love baking myself.
Mhm.
And inherently baking is like really crappy ingredients, a ton of sugar. And I also have tried to explore it a little bit on the healthier side, and we've been using almond flour as well. And I actually use a lot of maple syrup because in my stuff because it's definitely better than just like granulated sugar, you know. But yeah, that's interesting that you say that about. So you said coconut sugar, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I'll have to try it out and see how it is in my baking too. So wow, that's so cool. That just interests me so much about the actual recipe itself. And yeah, I mean, I read the ingredients on your cookie, and it's all really good stuff. And I was again pleasantly surprised with the taste and it being so thick and like kind of like juicy. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, super super cool. They're a lot bigger than what I thought they were going to be as well. So
Good. Yeah,
yeah.
I being gluten-free for so many years, you're used to dessert that's, like, smaller and tastes like cardboard and is flat, and I'm like, "No. I wanna give my customers, like, a big, thick, gooey, chewy cookie that I remember from my childhood."
Yeah, yeah, no, that's super cool. And then so then you went chocolate chip cookie, and I read somewhere that like people were asking you like crazy to do a brownie,
Yes.
right? So how did the brownie come up? Was it just because clients were asking for it, or customers, or was that kind of already in the works when after you kind of perfected the chocolate chip cookie side of things?
So, originally, my plan was to launch 4 or 5 different cookie flavors and then launch the brownies during the holidays of 2024.
Okay.
Launching the chocolate chip cookies in January, very quickly people started asking about a brownie, and I thought, "Well, I was going to do this for Christmas 2024 anyway. Let's just start recipe testing it now, see what I can come up with." And that was the easiest of all my recipes. It I nailed that one on the 2nd try. We still use
Oh, no
this
way.
today.
Oh,
Yes.
cool.
So, I've always been obsessed with brownies, I think just because 'cause I'm such a chocoholic, but that one was a lot easier. I will say brownie batter is a lot more forgiving than cookie dough.
Mm,
So, that one was, again, pretty easy to develop, and
mhm.
then once I started posting on Instagram saying like, "Okay, I think I have this recipe down," people got very excited, and I thought, "Well, why would I wait until the holidays to launch this? Let's just launch it now." And actually, the brownies quickly started to outsell the cookies.
No way.
Mhm.
Crazy. Yeah, because 'cause I'm more of a cookie guy than a brownie guy, but I'll have to try your brownies, see how they are.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that so and then so okay, so the brownie came about, which is awesome. And then talk about your social media following because obviously this podcast is the truth about social ads, right? So we talk about ads and marketing and all that stuff, but you took a little bit of a different approach because most brands that are starting today, especially around when you started, was like, okay, we'll start the brand, run some ads, right? We don't have a ton of people following us and stuff. We'll kind of get brand awareness as we're running ads and doing our marketing. But you had a following already from doing kind of the gluten-free stuff and all that. So maybe talk about that. Like, did you know what you were doing at that point? Like, was it the plan? Like, okay, I'm going to build my organic social first, then everybody wants your stuff and then you started running ads later. Like talk about that journey a little bit because I feel like you kind of did it backwards, but maybe it was intentional to do it that way, you know?
Right. When I started posting on Instagram right after I became gluten free, I thought I was still going to work in finance forever. It was never part of my plan to be an entrepreneur. Honestly, this was just a really fun creative outlet for me. And then as I started to grow a following, I thought that it would be really cool to come out with some sort of product someday of my own.
Yeah.
And this was especially during the COVID period where just understanding that social media is not something that I own and it could disappear tomorrow. And there was just so much uncertainty out there. And I was like, what if I actually did have a brand of my own? What would this look like? But it was kind of
Yeah.
just an idea in the back of my mind. And then once, like I said, that Christmas cookie series went viral and people started asking for this, that's really where the idea came from. So it was never my intention, but looking back, I'm so glad that I started posting on Instagram years ago and had built up this audience because it has really catapulted the brand, especially in the
Yeah.
beginning. And then to touch on your point about ads and paid marketing, that was something that I didn't explore until about 6 months into having the business, and I'm kinda glad that I didn't because once we turned those ads on, it was just a different ballgame and different business, and that's when we were forced to move into the commercial kitchen and
Yeah.
really start to automate things and come up with processes and systems. So, I think it would have been very difficult to have ads running while I was still at home baking,
Yeah.
because you never know when something's gonna hit, and I
Yeah.
really wasn't technically ready for that step yet. So, yeah, having ads turned on has been great. I mean, it's super expensive these days to acquire customers, but I'm willing to do it in the hopes that these customers continue coming back and become repeat customers.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what's kind of like your average, like in your Shopify store, what's your average like return customer rate, for example? Like,
It's about 40%,
oh,
which
awesome.
is much higher than industry average, and I'm
Yep.
very proud of that fact
Yep.
because I really want customers to have a great experience, and when I launched this business, I thought a lot of our customers would be people like me who are gluten-free and have to eat this way, but I've
Mhm.
been pleasantly surprised by the people who have really enjoyed them and continue to order who aren't gluten-free themselves, they just really enjoy the cookies.
Yeah, yeah, well, I should probably be gluten free. It'll probably help my inflammation in my body a little bit more, but I kinda get sucked into that, because I'm not officially gluten doesn't well, it probably does bother my body more than I actually, know for a fact, but, yeah, that's super cool. So, um, yeah, that's interesting. I mean, because I love the fact that you built a big following first. You weren't set out to build a brand until kind of that Christmas launch, and then all of a sudden things started rolling, right? And you're like, "Oh crap, like maybe I should do something here." So at what point did you quit your finance job? Like at what point were you like, "Okay, like I can step away from this. I'm making enough money." Or maybe you weren't making enough money at the time, but you knew there was potential there. Like at what point did you do that?
So, about a month or so into recipe testing, this was in September of 2023. And again, my goal was to launch around Christmas or right after in 2024 when we ended up launching. My finance job quit me. I was let go
Oh, really? Okay.
very unexpectedly. And I remember thinking at the time, like, I'm actually not that upset because I have this cool business idea that I'm working
Yep.
on, getting ready to launch, and I think I'll look back at this as a blessing in disguise. I knew it would have been tough for me to actually quit my job knowing that there's so much stability in a finance job and a steady paycheck, a 401k health.
Right.
So I was
Yeah.
kind of forced to jump in with both feet. And again, I'm really happy with how that timing worked out. But yeah, I never quit corporate America. It quit me.
That's crazy. Well, and so you thought was a stable paycheck, but it actually was not a stable paycheck up to one point, right? So,
Right.
yeah, yeah, and that's was kind of like with me. I when I started the agency, I was actually an LA policeman, and I was a cop. Yeah, and when I walked in, I got the agency going, and I was making decent money, living in LA, and very expensive and all that, and then it was very hard for me to make that decision. Like, okay, should I quit this like stable job where I could retire in 25 years with a pretty decent retirement, lifetime medical benefits at when I retire, like all that stuff. But and I literally when I went and resigned, people thought I was crazy. Like, dude, they're like, "You're gonna work from home? Like, what are you doing?" And back then too, it was ads weren't as mainstream as they are now. But I saw a big opportunity in the marketing space, and yeah, I left a seemingly good job. Although being LAPD, work in the worst neighborhoods of Los Angeles isn't like the safest and best thing to do. But yeah, it's crazy how that all worked out. Kind of like what you did, and it's tough to leave something and do something for so many years and then leave it. I mean, I was a cop for 13 years before I started the agency, so it was a long time. But
Wow.
um,
Well, thank you for your service. I have nothing but respect for our policemen and women, and
yeah,
I
thank you.
admire them for keeping us all safe. And so, thank you so much for doing that. And what a
Yeah,
courageous move. Like you said, it's not easy to go
yeah,
out on your own and to take the path less traveled. And
yep,
there's no playbook for how to start a business.
Nope,
There's no
absolutely.
boss you can ask a question to, and
Yeah.
it's I mean, it's hard. It's mentally and physically, it's difficult.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
and I do think you being a D1 athlete set you up pretty well for the stress and just, you know, the day-to-day of being an entrepreneur as well. And I actually always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I, finished high school and got halfway through college and was like, "Oh, I actually played volleyball at a pretty high level." So, I played volleyball and then yeah, quit the police department or got hired on the police department because decent paying job, good benefits, but you don't realize what the repercussions are of that decision until, I did it 13 years later and I'm like, man, what am I making 80 grand a year for what? Yeah, never being home, chasing guys in LA and yeah, it was super crazy, but yeah, crazy, but yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate it. So,
thank you.
yeah, all right, cool. Well, so love everything that you've shared up to this point. It's super insightful. I like getting into the nitty gritty of like business a little bit too as well. So when you started running ads, what was the journey for you hiring an agency at that time? Like, was it a referral? Did you know somebody? Like, because I know that can also be a very big decision for your business, right? Like hiring the right agency and getting the right people in place to make sure that they're growing your business and, doing everything for you. So, and we'll kind of wrap up here in a minute, but how was that side of things on your marketing? Like, how did you come upon that decision to hire an agency?
It was never really a question for me. I don't know how to run all the ads in the back end of Google and Meta by
Yeah.
myself. And I always have believed that you have to spend money to make money.
Hmm.
So my expertise is baking and coming up with new recipes. It's not how to structure a Meta ad account.
Yeah.
So I knew that I wanted to outsource that from day one. I had interviewed a few different agencies, found one I liked, and went with them.
Awesome.
I switched agencies about 6 months or so ago and have found an amazing agency that I'm with now.
Sweet.
But just knowing that they could do a much better job than I could by myself.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, no, that's great. And I'm glad you found a good agency because that can sometimes be half of the battle. Some brands go through multiple agencies until they find the right one. And some I always say most agencies are okay. There are a few that are really, really good and actually know what they're doing. So hats off to you for finding that. That's super cool. So
Thank you.
yeah. Anything else on the marketing side that you can share with our audience here who comes to listen for marketing advice and like, you know, um, just anything where when it comes to either margins or hiring an agency or, running Facebook ads or Google ads or your Klaviyo setup, whatever it is, any advice that you could offer to the audience.
I love Klaviyo. That's what we use for our email and SMS marketing. But I'd say the biggest thing is people want to support businesses with good people. They want to support people, right? Not
Yep.
business. So every time I get on my Instagram stories and talk about something going on with the business, people get so intrigued and they love to support me, which is really cool. So I would say marketing, especially these days, is less about margin and numbers and more about telling a story and allowing people to see the behind the scenes of your business and what it takes to
Love
run
it.
a business every day. I
Yep.
think something like that is going to stick with people much longer term than like a really pretty ad would.
Yeah.
So just knowing that when they go on to sweetaddisons.com and they're placing an order that these are recipes that I've formulated completely on my own for people like me to enjoy, rather than appearing to be too corporate or too advertised or calculated,
Yeah.
but you're actually supporting a real person and a real business and a team, and I think people much prefer to get behind that these days.
Yeah, that's awesome. Love it. Yeah. And I think we're also going to see, because, I'm already getting tired of all the AI videos in my feed, and we're going to see a reconvergence of just authentic UGC content from in ads, in our feeds, on your Instagram, wherever you are, because I look at some of these videos and ads, or just in general, I'm like, dude, what is this? Like, the mouth isn't even moving correctly with what they're saying, So I think we are going to see a bit of a reconvergence with UGC. Um, Content creation is going to be important now, right? And being real and authentic, like you said. I've always said that. I'd rather watch a real, authentic video than like some scripted thing that someone is doing. So yeah, I love that. Thank you for that advice. That's super valuable. So
Yes, of course.
um all right, Addison, anything else you want to share with the audience before we kind of wrap things up here?
I always like to say, don't let fear hold you back. Life is too short.
Awesome.
Things are scary. Starting a business is downright terrifying.
Yes.
And it's you'll never regret stepping out in courage and pursuing your dreams, even if it's an epic failure, right? At
This is
least you
true.
tried. And I think truly the only failure is not trying. So I would just encourage anyone out there who has a dream or passion to chase after that and not get to the end of your life and realize that you played it too safe.
Yep. No, I love that. And I can definitely relate to that as well. It's scary. And some days you wake up and you're like, man, what do I need to do to get some new customers today, or whatever, but you figure it out, and having a good support group is always good too. So, well, Addison, thank you so much for being on. So if someone wants to find your cookies and buy your cookies, where can they do that?
www.sweetaddisons.com. We ship to all 50 states, and your listeners can use code WELCOME10 for 10% off
Awesome.
their first order.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, we'll have that in the show notes. So if you want a little bit of a discount, welcome 10 for everybody. Again, we'll have that in the show notes if you want to take advantage. But Addison, thank you so much for being on today, sharing your story. Love it. Love how this whole thing came about. And I also love the fact that you're giving people healthy options, whether they're gluten-free or not. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Of course, thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the podcast. We'll see you again next time. Be sure to subscribe to get future episodes.